Hey guys, so I think I finally got enough seat time to share my thoughts and opinions on RaceTech's gold valves and springs. So I've been riding dual sports for about 6 or 7 years now, and I've owned a lot of different bikes throughout the years. It wasn't until about 2 or 3 years ago when I got into riding single track when I finally realized the stock suspension on most of my bikes is pretty inadequate for my riding style and like what I want to do. A perfect example is my WR250R. I've owned two of these bikes now, and the bike is incredibly undersprung and undervalved for me specifically. I'm 6'7", 300 pounds, so I'm a big guy. So I tried fixing the suspension with springs to begin with, and that worked great to like hold me up and get me moving, but it blew through the valving a lot quicker that way, and I still found myself bottoming out a lot. And that's even considering the fact that the springs are the correct spring ratio for my weight. That's when I started researching and then finally dawned on the fact that springs is the first part of the equation for fixing your suspension and getting it set up for you.
Wow.
Valving is next. And arguably, valving is more important than springs. And it's really hard to put into words, but the before and after of me revalving my front and rear shocks, it is night and day. We'll get more into that later though. Before we dive into this, I kind of want to give you guys an idea of like what I ride, so you maybe like know what to expect if you decide to do this mod yourself. So if I had to put a definitive figure on like what my ratio of dual sport riding is, it would probably be 90-10 dirt road riding. My buddy and I ride almost exclusively just single track and a little bit of two track here and there, but we really enjoy the technicality and challenge that single track has to offer. And we ride single track that ranges from like super easy to black diamond trails.
Oh, wow, dude. Make it?
And we just can't get enough of it. It's pretty much all that we ride anymore. Now, the reason why I went RaceTech over pretty much anything else is because of how DIY friendly it is. Later in the video, I'm going to give you guys price figures, what everything cost me. Put it on the screen for you guys, total what it was in the end. And I did everything myself. There are videos out there where you can do all the research and everything yourself. When you're thinking about these numbers and what I'm throwing out there, this is everything I did myself, so keep that in mind. And this isn't going to be like a specific WR250R suspension review, but rather just like a gold valve review in general. Because when it comes down right to it, if it's an open cartridge fork, your results are pretty much going to be the same as long as you have it valved to the way you need it. So when you get your gold valve in the mail, it comes in a pretty small box. You get your gold valve piston, you get shims, O-ring, and depending on the application, it will also come with a piston ring. So in the case of the WR250R, the valving is mainly controlled by the piston. With the RaceTech setup, it comes with an extremely high flow piston, and it relies on the valving or the shim stack to control the valving for you. Now what this means is that you're going to have much more customizability over your valving than you would with the stock piston. And you're probably thinking to yourself, like, how do I know how to build that shim stack, or how do I valve it? So what else comes in your box is something called a DVS code. And this is the greatest part of the RaceTech Gold valves, in my opinion. DVS stands for Digital Valving Search, You take the product code that's on it and you input it into RaceTech's website. They'll ask you a bunch of questions about your riding style, your weight, what's on your bike, just a bunch of questions that you have to go through. It's fairly easy. And then they give you a shim stack that you need to build. And basically they just lay it all out for you, tell you exactly what you need to do. They tell you the weight of oil that you need to use for your suspension. They just make it like super, super easy. So you build the shim stack to their specifications. I'm not going to go through the technicalities of how to do this because there's plenty of awesome videos out there. Just to give you an idea, if you're interested in doing this with your WR250R, I used Mr. Duff Actor's videos. They were an awesome tutorial for helping me how to do this. You get that done, get it all put together, and bam, your suspension is revalved. By far, that is my favorite part of the gold valve setup, is just how accessible and how easy they make this for anybody to do. It's just a genius setup. Now, this could be a downfall for some other people though. If you're not comfortable working on your bike, or if you don't feel comfortable taking apart the forks, you are not going to want to tackle this job. This is fairly difficult. It's not insanely hard, but it requires a lot of special tools and a lot of prior knowledge going in, especially for rebuilding the rear shock. So if you're not a DIY oriented person, I don't think this kit would be for you, specifically the gold valve kit. I mean, you still could buy it and have a shop do it for you, but at that point you might as well just have the shop revalve your bike for you anyways. So elaborating a little bit more on that DVS setup sheet, you have a couple options on how to set up your suspension. I chose single track and prefers soft suspension because I do prefer soft suspension. And even with those choices, the suspension is incredibly stiff compared to what it used to be now.
I think I need to get the sag set still, but way stiffer than OEM, so that's awesome.
But I can still take the bike off of jumps, small jumps, and not bottom out. Whereas before, I would take it off of like a 1 foot drop and I would blow through the entire stroke of the suspension. Alright, so going into like how I have it set up and the technicalities that are involved with what you have to do to set it up. How do I like it? How does it perform? Just one simple thought on that. I absolutely love it. So my shim stack that was built for me with that DVS surge is a 2-stage compression and 2-stage rebound, meaning that my high-speed rebound or my high-speed compression, either or, is going to soak up all of the small chatter and like smaller rocks and like just things that'll really hit the front wheel up real fast. It's going to soak it all up without me really even feeling it. Whereas my low speed compression Like, say I go off a jump or go over some whoops or something like that, my suspension is going to have lots of bottoming resistance to the point of where I just don't bottom out. I guess that's the best way to put it. It's just the best of both worlds, really. That's the best way I can describe it. So, what does all this technical mumbo jumbo translate to in real world use? Well, it's totally awesome. Now, for my type of riding style, obviously I expressed that this is awesome and it's a great upgrade for me. But there are definitely certain people that will not benefit from this. Like, say you're a dual sport rider that rides mostly road, there's really no point for you to get something like this. And the same is also true, like, if you're at a lower skill level, maybe you're just a beginner starting out off road, you're not going to benefit from something like this. You're not going to be pushing your bike hard enough. And hell, the same is even going to be true, like, if you own, like, a newer KTM or a Beta or just, some higher performance European bike, or even just a dirt bike in general that has, later suspension with really good valving. And if you're within that weight limit, chances are that even with my suspension being revalved the way it is now, it's going to be better than what I have, even. So you've really got to, like, toss around the idea of this and figure out if it's something that you really need. Now, on most Japanese dual sport bikes, like what I have, the bikes come undersprung and undervalved from the factory to be really soft, nice riding road bikes, really. So, in conclusion, if you're a DIY oriented person and you think this is something you can do yourself, and if you ride primarily off road on a softer sprung and valved dual sport, or maybe even an older dirt bike, and you're looking for a suspension upgrade, say, like, if you're a bigger guy like me, 300 pounds, even over 200 pounds, hell, even if you're just a smaller guy who's riding really gnarly terrain, I highly recommend this kit to you. This has completely transformed my bike in basically every conceivable way possible. I feel so much more planted when I'm riding. I can take corners faster, I can ride faster in general. I can actually hit jumps now without worrying about bottoming out the suspension. This is just a complete package of an upgrade, and I did it for about half the price doing it myself that a shop would have been able to do it for me. And not only that, but I have no shops in my area to do it, meaning that I would have had to pay hundreds of dollars to ship my suspension out to have it valved and sprung or whatever. So, like I said, if you're unsatisfied with your suspension in any way, just do this. I recommend it, and it takes a lot for me to recommend a product. I'm by no means an expert, but I can definitely tell you that this transforms your bike. I can definitely notice that. Now, I really appreciate y'all for watching. You guys are just awesome. All the responses I get in my YouTube videos and stuff is just amazing. I'm going to keep doing this as long as the positivity and community is there, because that's what drives me. Thanks for watching so much, guys. I love ya. Bye.